Say it with me. For we walk by faith, not by sight. Hey guys, John with Cheap Ole Cars and Audio. So today I want to talk about why I've got 4 old Mustangs. Why I've got new Edge Mustangs specifically. Why I don't have S197s or maybe even an S550 or something like that. I don't really like the look of the S550s. I really don't like the look of the S650s. The front end of the 550s and 650s is just like too... I bumped my microphone, I apologize. The front end of the S550 and 650 it's too big for me. I don't really like it. I like the more kind of angled, smaller front ends of the older cars from back in the day. I'm getting old. I like what I like. Whatever. Anyway, I know for a fact if I got like an S550 with the performance pack, it would absolutely out-corner my cars. And I'm all into cornering. But there's a very specific reason I have these new Edge Mustangs. And I want to talk about that. So I started getting into new Edge Mustangs in 2005. Okay? The new Mustang had just come out, the first S197. But my wife had this 02 V6, which you've seen in my other videos, the red V6. She had that car. She bought it in 04. It was an 02. It was like a year and a half old at the time with about 20,000 miles on it. And she bought it, and she and I got together in 05. We had actually dated previously in 99 and 2000. Okay? And then we really were, very close. Absolutely, like we were 14 and 15, but we were like head over heels in love. We were going to get married, all this stuff, and then we're 15, we're dumb teenagers, right? So I ended up breaking up with her because dumb reasons. I know the reasons, I can tell you, but it's all just stupid stuff. But it is important. It's all very important to me because we got back together a few years later, and we've been married for 18 years. So that time when we were 14 and 15, it's important to me because that was time with my wife. So anyway, she had this Mustang, and I wasn't into Mustangs. The SN95s kind of just looked like jelly beans, and there was something about them that I hated, and I didn't really understand what it was at the time. I know what it is now. The looks of them I don't mind so much. If they have the Cobra bumper on the front with the round fog lights, you put a Cobra bumper on an SN95, it completely changes that car. Yeah, it completely changes the look of the car. Makes the whole car look mean and cool. I like the Cobra bumpers. So anyway, she's got this 02 Mustang, and I at the time had a 77 Trans Am, and I've put it in other videos. I think I've got a picture actually still pulled up. Make myself small, and then do display capture. There we go. I had the 77 Trans Am. It didn't quite look like this at the time. The paint did not hold up well on it. I'll talk about that more in a different video, but it was a cool car, right? Had a cool car. I also had an 84 F-150. Kind of want to show that too. Okay, make myself small again and turn my display capture back on. There is my 84 F-150. Okay, that I had. My dad bought it new, and I bought it off of him. I get a little frustrated when I look at this picture. So first, the sun's on the wrong side. I should have angled the truck the other way, and the sun would have been shining down the side of the truck. It would have been brighter. It would have been a much better picture. But I didn't know things back then. But this is not Ford colors. This is Chevy Victory Red and a Corvette-specific Arctic White. The Ford white was a little more yellowy, and the Chevy white had a little bit more blue tint to it, and so those look better. And then Chevy Victory Red, that color's just a win anywhere. I love Victory Red. And then I repainted the insets of the headlight buckets, and it was a 300 straight 6 with a 4-speed. The only options it had was this nice trim and air conditioning. No cruise control. Did have a radio, but no didn't even have a cassette player. And I had it. This was stock suspension, and these are KMC Condors. I liked the KMC Stealth better because it had exposed lug nuts, but the Condor had the Chevy and Ford truck bolt pattern behind a cap. And one of my buddies had these. I had one buddy that had Stealths on a Chevy truck, and the other buddy wanted Stealths, but he didn't want to copy the other guy, and so he got Condors. They're very similar. But so they had similar wheels, but they weren't exactly the same. And then when he sold that truck, he had those wheels, so I bought those wheels off of him. I'm going to take a tangent, take a little different path here, as I typically do. We'll get back to why I have these Mustangs. one day I was driving this home from college. Oh yeah, also this makes me upset because there's a little gray place right here and a little gray place right here. Like 4 days after we painted it and let it sit out in the sun for a while and bake for a few days and stuff. But I was driving it for 4 days, and a lady, I know who it was, and she replaced my tire, but she ran a key from right here all the way down the whole truck. I polished most of it out, but there was a place right here and right here where it was dug in a little deeper, and it was like we just painted the truck and put it together. I didn't want to pull it back apart to repaint because I needed it to be driving back and forth to college and my job and stuff. And after a little while, there was a little paint place that chipped out in these 2 spots, and that was infuriating. She also stabbed the sidewall of my tire, and we figured out who it was, and she got to pay for that. I don't know why. I was young at the time. I don't remember why we didn't make her pay for the truck to be repainted. I don't know. Anyway, and then not long after this is really hurtful because, like I said, my dad bought this truck new like a few weeks before I was born, and so this truck was around my whole life. I was driving home from school one day, and I was going up a bridge. The bridge is like half to 3/4 of a mile long. I think it's 3/4 of a mile, and I was still going up it. It's not that steep, but still, the truck stalled, and I tried to like get it to start as I'm like coasting up the hill and losing speed really quickly, and then like went down to another gear and tried to basically like pop the clutch and get it to restart. It would not start. Okay, and so it stalled on a interstate bridge and got hit by a crew cab F-260 going 60 miles an hour in the rear. And it got tore up bad. Okay. I was still in the truck because I'm on a bridge, right? I thought I'm on the right lane, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to get out of the truck and get up ahead of it. So if it gets hit, I'll set the e-brake and stuff. If it gets hit, I'm not in the truck. I'm like, we went back the next week we went back on the same night at the same time. And in the time I was on the bridge, it was like 300 cars a minute coming across the bridge, coming home from work in the bigger town that's the next town over. And so, yeah, there was no getting out of the car on an interstate bridge that's 2 lanes with no shoulder. It's like there's no shoulder at all. It's just, right off the edge of the lane, the concrete goes up. And so, yeah, there was no getting out. And I was like, okay, maybe if I slide across to the passenger side, I can get out there and get ahead of the truck. But while I'm thinking this, cars are like sliding and barely missing me and stuff. And I'm like, I'm sitting in the driver's seat with my seatbelt on. If I unhook my seatbelt and slide across this cab to try to get down on the other side, because it was a bench seat, right? I was like, someone's going to hit me while I'm sideways or moved or something, or not kind of in the position you should be in. And I know from looking at crash statistics and different things, like that's you're going to get hurt, right? You're going to get hurt bad. And so I was like, okay, cool. I will just sit in the seat and take this hit when it comes. And so I called the cops and I told them what was going to happen. Basically said, hey, I'm in an old truck. It's really lightweight. It's probably going to fold up like a tin can. Come clean up the mess. And I called my dad and said, hey, might not make it off this bridge. Not sure what's going to happen. Sorry. It was a crappy situation because I was pretty sure I was going to die. Because you're in an old truck like this and someone hits you going 60 plus miles an hour in these newer cars, and it's just all that force. I'm in a little 80s bench seat. Like, it was going to be bad. It was going to be really bad. There's my brother's yellow truck. It was big and lifted. He painted that one. So let's see here. Oh yeah, look at that. Look at that. This is just from a rear impact, guys. The whole truck was messed up. The hood was messed up. The little cow panel was messed up. Even the front bumper was bent from the whole body pushing forward into it. This was a bad wreck. Let me see if I have that one picture here. Look at that. Here's the crazy thing. Look at this. Look at this. Down, up, back down. The truck still drove. We got in it, started it up, and drove it down the road and back. And it's crazy that it still drove too. Like the drive shafts should not have been able to turn. Like it was almost one of the leaves from the leaf springs was on top of the frame, and another leaf was on the bottom of the frame. Like the frame went between through the leaf spring. It was crazy. You can see a little bit of this bend right here. Well, I'm going to try to show you if this picture's here. Look at that. I mean, the bed is like touching the door almost, and you can see it right here. This bend. Let's see if I can find another picture of it. Yeah, there you go. There you go. I don't think I should have walked away from this one, guys. The seat, the cab, and the bed bent around my back. Okay. My head busted out the back window. There were 2 dents in the firewall. I stayed loose. I tried to stay loose. I put my hands on the steering wheel and I put my feet kind of on the floor. And I was like, okay, just this position. Got my seatbelt on. Kind of hold on the steering wheel, but not tight. Because when you're tight, that's when you really mess up your joints and stuff when you get in a wreck. And I just sat there in the truck and just like, I'm going to get hit. This is going to hurt really bad. I might die. I'm just going to sit here calmly and just hope I live. And yeah, 2 dents in the firewall for where my feet were. The cat, like I said, the seat, the cab, and the bed bent around my back. My head busted out the rear window, like I said, and then I had a Shelby style steering wheel wood with the metal spokes. It cut the side of my hand. I have a pretty good scar on the side of my hand. There was actually a vein sticking out of my hand. If you want to know what veins feel like, they feel just like a rubber band. And I pulled on it just because I was dumb and curious, and I felt it in the elbow from up here. That was weird. Anyway, it was really weird. Man, I love this truck. It was so nice, too. It only had, as you can see, this was 2006. It was an 84, so it's 22 years old. It had just turned 100,000 miles. Like, we didn't drive this truck that much. It was an awesome truck. Let's see if we got Mo pictures. The cab broke. Basically, the fact that it was, I mean, I do think it was a God thing. I think God kept me alive. But it helped that the truck was so weak and flimsy, and so basically the truck bent and took the impact. Man, it was bad. It was so bad. There's when I first bought it. The paint was faded and stuff, as you can see the red from the factory Ford paint. And get back over here. That was a whole, like, I keep doing that. I get off into side stories and stuff. I'm whatever. Anyway. And so, my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, she had this '02 Mustang, and I had a '77 Trans Am. And I was not a Mustang guy. I'd ridden in some Mustangs. A friend's sister had a yellow 99 or 2000 GT somewhere in there. And then that same friend's dad had a black 2000 GT. And my buddy actually still has that. He bought it from his dad. It had sat outside forever. It had 200,000+ miles on it. And so he put a new engine in it, had it repainted, got the front seats redone, and new brakes all the way around, and new rubber lines and stuff. And it did a soft restoration on this car. And it sits in his garage now, and it is like the cleanest 2000 GT ever. It's so nice. I mean, obviously, there's still like super low mile ones out there and stuff, but like this car, it's really nice, and I'm proud of him. He loves it and everything. Anyway, so I'd ridden in his sister's one. I'd ridden in that one, that black GT my buddy has, and then another buddy, his mom had like a '95 V6. I don't know. I'd ridden in the back of them, and I'd ridden in the front seat of that '95, and the suspension was soft, and it was like, you hit the brakes and the front end dives, and like, whoa. Like, this thing's kind of awful. And so I don't know, I just wasn't into the Mustangs. But my girlfriend had that red '02 V6, and we drove it and stuff, and I was like, it's kind of fun to drive. It's not bad. I mean, it's a relatively weak and flimsy chassis, and it had some body roll. And I told her, I was like, hey, these, I did some research, and I said, these V6s don't have a rear sway bar. And I said, if we put a rear sway bar on it, it'll keep it from having as much body roll, and it'll feel better in the corners. It'll feel more planted and, just more stable. And she's like, okay, well, cool, let's try it. And so I got one off of I don't remember exactly. It was either the 96 or 98 Cobra. I know the 98 Cobra is a big hollow bar, and it was one of the biggest ones you could get for the solid rear axle. SN95 and new edges. One of the actual stiffest ones you could get was that 98 Cobra one. I don't remember if it was that one or not. I honestly don't remember. It was either a 96, 97, or 98, somewhere in there. Cobra rear sway bar that I bought off eBay. And bolted it on and stuff, and all of a sudden we're going out and we're going around corners, and she's like, this thing's pretty great. Like, it is flat, and the seats are flat, they don't hold you in place well. It's a V6 auto, it's not fast at all, but it was fun to drive, right? It was fun to drive. And so I kind of started being like, I kind of like these cars. And I still had the 77 Trans Am. It was sitting in the garage. The paint was failing and stuff, and so it was just like I parked it, and like, I'm not gonna drive that anymore because it's just gonna get messed up. And I kept that for a long time. So this was, when did we get back together? 05, I said. In 2011 or 12, I was like, yeah, I really want my Trans Am, but I don't have the money to build my Trans Am the way I want it. Like, we were struggling. We had just been married a few years. We got married in 07. We had some extra money from time to time, but not a ton, right? It definitely wasn't enough to drop 20 or 30 in building that Trans Am again, how it needed to be built. Because a lot of the aftermarket parts I bought for it when I did the first restoration, they only lasted like 4 or 5 years, and then they were crap. Like, the seat vinyl didn't hold up at all, the foam didn't hold up. A lot of the plastics that I bought and rubber pieces, weather seals and different things, they were junk in 5 years. So that sucked. And so the car, it needed a lot. It needed another full restoration. After when I was a teenager, I'd spent like $18,000 on this car. That includes rebuilding the engine and transmission and the paint. We did the paint ourselves, but we did a lot of work and full interior and all this stuff. I'd spent like $18,000 in the early 2000s. It was a lot of money. And later on, I didn't have that kind of money to spend, but I really wanted something like that. But I wanted a tan interior. One thing I never liked about the Trans Am was the black interior. It's just dark in there, So I wanted like a black car with a tan interior. And so I'm looking at stuff. I'm looking around. And I kind of skipped a little bit. In like 08, my wife and I bought a 2001 red WS6 Trans Am with an auto. Okay, LS1 car, all that. T-tops, real fun car. We bought that, and then pretty quickly realized that like, it's a fun car, but it had some big blind spots. It was kind of hard to see. It wasn't super confidence inspiring when you're out taking it through corners and stuff. Like, the car could handle pretty well and you could drive it. They're generally known as not handling that well. But the main thing about it was, because it was a Panhard bar and torque arm suspension, and it should have been fine. But it didn't feel good, if that makes any sense. It just wasn't, I don't know, it just didn't have that thing that you want when you're out cornering. But her dumb V6 Mustang did. It was fun to drive. You got out of it and you had a smile on your face, and it was a fun car to drive. So I eventually sold that 01 Trans Am to my dad, okay? And so this is a few years later after that, and I'm wanting something. But these Mustangs, these new Edge Mustangs have won me over, okay? And I hadn't had much experience with the S197s, and the S197 chassis was still at the time, because we're talking 11, 12, and so they're in their second version of that S197. The Coyotes are coming out and stuff, but that was new cars at the time, so that stuff wasn't even on the radar. I'm looking at, I need something $6,000, $7,000, somewhere in there, something old, right? Sorry, as for my daily as well. I'm looking for a new daily. I'm wanting something fun. And so I was kind of like, what's affordable, right? What can I get? What's decent, okay? And, well, I kind of settled on, like, well, okay, I want a black Bullet. That's a cool car. I like the Bullet. I like the whole thing that they got going on with their looks and stuff. I've never driven a Bullet, but all the magazine articles, all the magazine articles say that they had a real good balance and they felt good and they were real fun in corners. And the intake manifold gave them good mid-range torque. I'd read all this stuff, and I'm like, I want that. That sounds cool. But I could not afford one. These cars were 10 years old at the time, and they were still out of my price range. So I found a black. It just happened to be an '01, the same as the Bullet, but it wasn't because it was an '01. It just happened to find this car. I found a black manual tan interior '01 GT with 99,000 miles on it. Okay, 10-year-old car. And I think I got it for 65. It might have been slightly more. I can't remember for sure. My wife says she thought it was closer to 7. I'm thinking it was like 65 or 66. I honestly can't remember. Somewhere in that ballpark, though. And so I bought that car. And that was about the money I had. So I did eventually put some 10th anniversary Cobra wheels on it because I really like 10th anniversary wheels, like the ones I have on my Green Bullet. I really like those on a black Mustang. I think that looks amazing. The dark gray, kind of the split spoke thing. I just think it looks great on a black car. So I put a set of those on there, 17x9s all the way around. I accidentally ordered the wrong size tires because I was an idiot back then. I ordered 255/40 17s so it was from LMR, and I didn't look. This is the problem. I thought when you got those wheels from them with a tire package, they came with 275/40 17s. So I just okay, I wanted the Nitto tires. I was like, okay, there's the Nittos by, them sent here, already mounted and balanced and everything. They came in, they're 255/40s, and I'm like, that's a little shorter and a little narrower than I wanted. But I didn't really question. I was like, cool, I got tires. I needed tires. When I bought the car, it had S197 wheels on it, and they're not as bad in the front, but the offsets of them make them sit way too far in the rear, and it just looked goofy. And so I was like, cool, I got 17x9s, got some better tires on it. I wanted to lower it. I wanted to do a lot more to it. I didn't do anything to it. It already had a catback, but I didn't have the money to do anything else to it, right? And so I took it out, and I went through corners, and I learned a lot about driving aggressively but smoothly in that car. And to the point where I was running behind a C5 Vet one time, and this guy in the C5, he was pushing through the corners pretty good. I am not saying a New Edge Mustang is comparable to a C5, but I was behind one particular guy in the C5, and he was trying to run through this curvy road pretty good. I knew the road better, I think, and was pushing a little harder, and he relented and let me by. He pulled off and gave me a pass, and kind of waved at me as I went by and stuff. Again, not saying that, right? But saying that I was getting really comfortable with these cars. Okay? I'm not saying that it was a better car in any way or any stretch of the imagination in corners than the C5 Corvette. The C5 Corvette is lighter, gets better gas mileage, corners better straight line acceleration, more storage room, although Mustangs has 4 seats, which is kind of a win for the Mustang, a little win there for the Mustang. No. C5 Corvette's a better car. But I was getting comfortable with the cars. I was really enjoying them, really liking them. And I understand that. I could feel the chassis flex. I could feel the rear end, the tires turning under the car but I know that there's solutions to all that stuff. And again, at this time, S197s were still new. They did come out in 05, and we're talking the oldest ones at the time were 6-7 years old. So they were still way out of my price range at the time. But I got comfortable with these new edges. Again, I bought the black one because my wife had that 02. We still have it. And it was fun. It was fun to drive. It just, I don't know. There was something about them. I kind of can explain it a little bit. They felt like an old car. They are. The chassis was designed for the 78 Fairmont or something, okay? So it felt like an old car. And so in that way, it kind of felt like driving my 77 Trans Am. A little. And again, the Trans Am was bigger and heavier and longer hood and big torque, 400 and all that stuff. And so it was a drastically different experience, but something felt similar. And maybe it's the chassis flex. I don't know. It felt comfortable to me because that first car that I had that was mine, really, outside of that Ford truck, was that 77 Trans Am. I drove it a ton, right? I drove the wheels off that car hard. I didn't drive it every day. I drive that Ford truck a lot. And then I take that Trans Am out on the weekends, and I just rip through back roads way faster than I ever should have gone. And so the Mustang had a somewhat similar feel to that. And that's, I've experienced that with that red V6, and then with that black GT. I was like, I really like this. There's just something about these. And at the time, I was doing auto detailing and stuff too, and I drove some S197s, and the chassis was way stiffer, and everything was better. Just didn't do it for me. I don't know. Now, those cars were 3-valve cars. They weren't Coyotes, okay? Obviously, the more power would make a difference. But I don't know. They just didn't do. I still like how the S197s look. I don't remember if I said at the start of this video or not, but S550s, I've seen some that look pretty cool modded, but I don't know. That car doesn't really do it for me. I might end up with an S550 at some point when the prices come down a little bit more, because you can't deny the performance the car has, especially with some mods. But right now, I'm looking at, let's say, they're like low 20s. And for low 20s, I can get a C5Z06. I can get a C6Z51. Z51, I didn't say C. Z51. But yeah, you can get those cars, and that's just a way better car. Can do way more for the money you put in. And so right now, to me, from a very kind of pragmatic, this because of this, logic, the newer Mustangs don't make much sense to me. But these new edges kind of still do make sense, mainly because, well, it's called Cheap Ole Cars in audio, right? Mainly because they're cheap. Some of them are going up. The Cobras are stupid expensive, but yeah, you still get a lot. And now I know I look on the Corner Ponies page and other stuff, and every time someone brings up, I'm thinking about getting a new edge to mod and make into a autocross or a road course car, everybody's like, those suck, just skip them entirely. Maybe they do. I don't really care. I like them. I'm going to continue to like new edges forever. Eventually I will have other stuff. I'd really want to get a C5 Vet. C6 is probably the better car to get. If I can find a C6 Z51, that might be the better car to go for. I don't know. I really want a C5 Z06 04 Le Mans Commemorative Edition. That's what I want. That's like a dream car. I've wanted one of those since they came out 21 years ago. But yeah, it's kind of tough to explain, and it really comes down to a value standpoint. Like for the same miles, an F body from that era, and that's kind of, let's say we're talking, obviously there's inflation and the dollar doesn't go as far as it used to, but let's say we're talking under $15,000. We might have to actually go lower than that, because under $15,000 you can get base C5s now, and if I was shopping for a car right now with an up to $15,000 budget, there's no way I'm getting anything but a C5. It's so much car for the money. And like I said, I don't know if I said this, not in this video anyway, I'm not a brand loyal guy. I've got 4 Mustangs, right? I drive a Chevy truck as my daily, and my wife has an Escalade, which is a gussied up Tahoe. So I'm not brand loyal at all. I think brand loyalty is actually really kind of dumb. Those companies don't care about you. They do not care. They just want you to spend money. And so I like cool things. And it says, like, in my description on my page, I like cool things from all brands. Mitsubishi Evo, it's a cool car, right? And there's lots of other stuff too, like NSX is different, Supras, and all the things, right? If it's a cool car, I like it. But these Mustangs, these new age Mustangs, guys, let's say you're shopping 10 grand or less. It's even hard these days because I keep seeing the prices go up on them. But let's say for what I paid at the time that I bought them, it was the most car I could get for the amount of money I spent. Yes, I could have found things that went faster in a straight line with a little bit more horsepower. But I don't just want that. I know a lot of people, the horsepower number and the quarter mile time, and they got blinders on to everything else. That is the only thing they're interested in. That is their bragging rights. That is all the car means. I like how it makes me feel, right? I like that it's not that great. Honestly, I like that it's not that great. I like that the suspension does a little weird stuff. I am trying on my Blue Bullet. I'm trying to tune some of that stuff out, but I like that they don't have much power because it makes me have to be a better driver to get through the corners and be smoother and try to do better, right? Now, would I be saying this stuff if I had enough money to go buy brand new ones? Maybe. And that's partly just because I'm one of those guys. I know that I like the stuff that came out when I was in high school. I like new Edges and C5 Corvettes. Those were new when I was in high school. I understand that. And I've been in some of the newer cars. But honestly, a lot of what the newer cars have, all the electronics turn me off. And a lot of the size of them turns me off. You know, when I get in one of my Mustangs, they're like 3,300 pounds, fairly small. You know, a Corvette, a C5 Corvette's like 3,200 pounds, somewhere in there. And so my car's not that much heavier than those cars. It's a little bit heavier, but not that much. You know, I go get in, like, let's say, one of the newer Mach 1s. What were they, 20 and 21, or were they later than that? I don't remember. Anyway, one of the newer Mach 1 Mustangs. I think the Bullet was 19 and 20, and then the Mach 1 was like 22, 3. I don't remember. Whatever. Those cars, they handle great. They have a lot of power. I've seen them run away from other cars on road courses and stuff. But I walk up to them and I'm just like, this thing's a barge. It's so big. You can't see both of my arms. Here, you see both of my arms. It's so big, right? I don't know. There's something visually unappealing to me about how large those cars are. And then the windows, too, for rollover safety. The windows have become really small, and then the pillars have become really thick. And I get that you roll over, you don't want the roof to kill you. But I look out there. I'm looking at my green Bullet out this window right here. And the pillars are small. The lines are good. The windows are big. You can see out. It's got a good greenhouse. I guess I'm willing to give up performance to have something that I personally, looks are subjective. Looks are completely subjective. There are people that look at New Edge Mustangs and they're like, that thing is ugly as sin. I like it. I look at it, I'm like, good looking car. And if, like, I don't know, the new ones, like, I walked up to, I don't remember what year it was. It was a newer GT500. It wasn't the most recent GT500. It was one from a little bit earlier than that. And it was at the Ford showroom over there. And I walked up and the hood was up and I'm looking at it and I'm like, this is just a big car. I don't like newer trucks for the same reason. The giant noses, like I'm 5'9" or 5'10", somewhere in there. I don't know. With shoes on, I'm typically 5'11", so I'm probably 5'10". I don't know. Somewhere in there. I'm average height, okay? But I walk up to some of these newer trucks, and the hood's like here on me. This is dumb. I don't like it at all. I like my 2004 Silverado that's lowered 3.4. And it's got a little bit of a rake, just a little bit of a rake. And the hood slants down. And I sit in it and I can see everything. And it's so great. I had for a while a 2010 F-150. I traded a car for it. And then I sold the F-150 Evergreen. But it was a really nice truck to drive. It rode so good. There's a place over here not far from me where there's a ditch that, or there's a big dip where there's water runoff for the one road to the next road. So it runs off the crown and then hits this other road and then it runs to a drain on each side. So it's a real sharp thing, and you have to turn to go through it. So all four tires hit it at separate times. And whenever I'm trying out new shocks or trying out different things, I always go run through that back and forth a couple times at little different speeds. And so I kind of have, I know how different vehicles that I have owned and some others that I've driven, how they handle that bump. It's a really bad one. That 2010 F-150 crew cab, right, four-wheel drive, I didn't even hardly feel it. That bump thing, that, you know, it was just like, no, what was that? You didn't even notice it. That thing rode so good. It had so much room in the rear. It was huge. My kid, at the time he was shorter, he could stand up and like walk around in front of the back seats. And the bed was deep. And it was a good looking truck. It was that really pretty blue that Ford has, the brighter blue. It was a really pretty truck, and I really thought about keeping it too. It was a 4.63 valve, which I think those have less cam phaser issues than the 5.43 valve. I don't know for sure. I know that it would eventually probably have cam phaser issues, and it had a 6-speed transmission. I think I don't remember. But it was a nice truck, right? And the previous owner, he had done some stuff to pull trailers and stuff with it, so it was a little bit higher in the rear and different things. And then I took that stuff out and kind of leveled it in the way that we used to level things. I'm bringing the rear down, not the front up. Anyway, it was a 4x4, but I was going to lower it 2 more inches beyond that. But my whole issue with it was, I get that they lifted the cabs off of the frame a little ways so they could have like a flat floor inside. You don't have a transmission up, and it makes for a lot more interior room. I get that. That's really cool. But the trucks are too big. They're just too dang big. Like I said, we walk up the hoods here, and when I was in that truck, I really enjoyed driving it. It was great on the interstate. It was great around town. But if I was in a parking lot and I'm like trying to turn and it's kind of sharp and there's some curbs and stuff, I'd lose them way before I got to them because the hood was so big and tall, right? I'd lose them. I couldn't see them. And so I'm like, okay, I just kind of remember where that was. I hope I miss it. I didn't like it. So then I sold that and got the 2004 Silverado and lowered it a little bit, and I can see everything really well. So anyway, that's why I like these old Mustangs. That's kind of where I'm at with it. They're cheap. They're fun to drive, even if they're not the best. And they're cheap. They're really cheap. That's kind of the main thing I want to drive into your heads here. They are cheap. And parts for them are cheap. If you're interested in straight line speed, you're going to have to look elsewhere, I guess, or Boost or something. But if you're buying the car and then buying a $6,000 supercharger or $4,000 or $5,000 or $6,000 turbo kit, you might as well just get something else. If you're okay with not having the straight line speed, but it's a fun old car to drive and you don't want to spend a bunch of money, yeah, New Age Mustangs are great. I think they're better than the 4th Gen F bodies. And that was about it at the time for that type of car. All the JDM stuff from that era is either junk or absolute sky-high crazy prices now. And so, yeah, of the cars of that era that are in this price range that I like to buy stuff in and am comfortable spending money on, whatever, and to me, the New Edge Mustang is the best car that fits all that criteria. And that's why I have them. And I will eventually have other stuff because things will change over time. New Edges will go up in price. Other cars will come down and different stuff, and I will eventually change things up because that's what I like to do. I like to have fun. I've had a lot of cars. But yeah, that's it. So thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed this, and we'll see you in the next one.